welcome back or welcome to a brand new video. Welcome to Bookmas episode 2. So I'm quite excited for this video. We will be going through my favourite books of 2023. Originally I was going to do the video where people do their favourite 23 books from 2023, but I just couldn't come up with 23 books that I really enjoyed this year, even though I've read about 94 so far. But I'm really close to my goal of 100 books. I think I get it done before the new year start. I start off from January and we're going to end in December. Obviously December hasn't ended yet, we're only halfway through, so I'm only going to just show you guys the books I think might be a 5-star or will be my favourite book of December. 2023 was the start of my booktube and my YouTube channel. I've read so many books this year. I hope you guys enjoy. If you're new to this channel, make sure you like and subscribe. But let's get to it. In terms of my favourite book that I read in January, there were so many to pick from, but I went back to my GOODREADS, saw what I read and kind of just picked out the one that I gave 5-star or the one that I know that I generally enjoy that month. So for number 1 we have The Twisted Games by Anna Hugh. This is part of a Twisted series. This is a book 2. This follows Rise and Bridget. I absolutely love this book so much. It is a bodyguard princess trope. It is kind of enemies to lovers, grumpy ex-sunshine, all the vibes. So Rise is Bridget's bodyguard. He gets hired to be a bodyguard. Bridget is a princess, but she is next in line to be the queen. So it's kind of her kind of dealing with all of that stuff. Of course we're going to get those possessive, whoever hurts you is going down vibes, which we love. It's a book where Rise, my baby, like I'm obsessed with him, and reading Bridget and Rise's story was just so cute. I read Twisted Love, which is the first book in the series, but it wasn't my favourite of the month. But this book here, The Twisted Games, was absolutely amazing and it was so good. If you haven't checked out the Twisted series, I definitely recommend checking them out. The whole series really changed my life and really got me into reading more paperbacks, and the cover's just so freaking cute. I love books from Anna Hugh. If you haven't read any of her books, I definitely recommend checking it out. Next we have my favourite February read. So obviously February is the month of love. It's my birthday, but it's also Valentine's Day, and February I read some really good romance books. That being said, my favourite read in February was Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. I read this book so quickly. I loved it. It features Iris and Declan. This couple right here are my baby. I love Twisted Games, but these two together and their relationship was just, again, beautiful. Declan, again, he's like the type that's like, I'll buy you anything you wanted. If she wanted it, he would get it, and she didn't even need to ask. This is a assistant and boss trope. It is kind of like friends to lovers. Iris, again, she's my baby. She is actually a black female main character. If you're looking for any romances that have a black female main character, I definitely recommend checking out Terms and Conditions. Terms and Conditions is actually part of a series by Lauren Asher called the Dreamland Billionaire series. The first book is The Fine Print and Terms and Conditions is the second book. So the premises of a whole series is basically these 3 brothers, and when their granddad dies, he has a will, and the only way they can have a part in his company is by doing like this task that the granddad says. They all have different tasks. For Declan, his granddad's wish is for him to get married and to have the first heir. That is the terms and conditions in order for him to get that part in the company. Iris offers herself up for the job. See, she's his assistant. She knows him better than anyone else, and as you guys can guess, a relationship blossom. I love these two so much. Seeing how the relationship blossoms and seeing kind of like the unrequited love from the beginning was just chef's kiss. I love this couple with my whole heart. If you've never ever read this book or even read anything from Lauren Asher, I definitely recommend checking it out. In March, there were so many books that I read. My favourite book in March was The Final Offer by Lauren Asher. This is the 3rd book in the Dreamland Billionaire series and I love it so much. This one features Callahan. Callahan is the youngest brother. He's like the flirty one. He's like the golden retriever of the brothers. His task set by his granddad is to return back to their family house, or their summer house, and to spend the summer there and basically stay there for like a month, I think it was. And when he goes there, he bumps into his old best friend, Alana. So them two actually were in a relationship. And they went down 6 years ago and they hadn't spoken to each other since. And he sees her there. He's thinking, what on earth are you doing here? And he's realised that his granddad did not only give him half of that house to him, but half of the house went to her. Him trying to like navigate living with her, and like obviously the unresolved feeling. I feel like his book was the most emotional for me, and it was the most anticipated from the series, especially reading the fine print and terms and conditions. And this book did not disappoint. It did not disappoint. It was my favourite book of March. We had so many reads, but this one was the best. I annotated the hell out of it. As you can see, I annotated the hell of all of these books. I think I even want to go back and reread them in the new year, even though I only read them this year. But I loved it. I gobbled it up. I love Alana. I loved her kid. And it was just a beautiful story. So I definitely recommend reading this. This is the ex-best friends, is enemies to lovers, or ex-best friends to enemies to lovers. It's kind of like a little bit more emotional. Callahan, he seems like the golden retriever, but there's a lot more about him, and he's kind of misunderstood, and I just loved hearing his story. Like, he's my baby. So I haven't read this book, definitely recommend checking it out, and anything by Lauren Asher. Now let's move on to my favourite book of the month of April. So April, I didn't read that much. I read about a total of 6 books. I didn't give any books 5 stars, but I found the closest one, and I really enjoyed this book. I originally read it on my Kindle, but because I enjoyed it so much, I decided to get a physical copy. That book is The Locker Room by Megan Quinn. I love this book so much. It's a college romance, it's a sports romance, and it's amazing. I absolutely love it. So there's this locker room. The locker room belongs to the baseball team, and there's basically this like superstition that whoever goes in the locker room with their partner or like their girlfriend, they're gonna end up with a rock on their finger, getting into a serious relationship. This book features Knox and Emery. Knox kind of gets the feelings for Emery first, so it's definitely a guy falls first, but she doesn't reciprocate those feelings, and he thinks by taking her into that locker room it'll kind of change her mind. Obviously he never believed in that superstition that whoever takes their girlfriend or the person they like into that room, they will get married. But when he falls in love with Emery, he's kind of like, how do I get her to fall in love with me? So it's kind of them and their relationship. This book was just so freaking cute. It definitely involves some groveling, which we love. I loved seeing these couples. It's not a really thick book, but I liked that because it kind of got to the point. It didn't really have much drama to it, which I loved, and it was a nice cozy read, especially in April time. I had kind of like a bit of a book slump. This book was really easy to read, and Megan Quinn, the way she writes, it's a bit comedic. It made me laugh. It made me kind of like giggle and kick my feet, and it's such a good read. But if you haven't read anything by Megan Quinn, I definitely recommend checking out The Locker Room. It was such a really good book. It was such a really cozy book, and if you haven't read it, go and read it. Next we move on to my favourite book in May. So in May, we were getting towards the start of summer, and I had to pick up this book right here. So originally I hadn't read anything by Emily Henry. I never even heard who she was, but again, TikTok, how popular it is, I discovered Happy Place by Emily Henry and decided to pick it up because I saw it in my local Waterstones. And this book right here, I was obsessed with it from my first page to the last page. This book, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just so raw and so emotional and so like complex and realistic that it just pulled at every heartstring. Like, it made me laugh, it made me cry, like I was bawling my eyes out. The characters we meet are so wholesome, are so complex, and it really felt surreal. Like, I felt like I was in that moment, I was part of those group of friends. So this book features Harriet and Wynne. So they were together, but they broke up, and their friends don't know, basically. And every year they go to their happy place, or this is what she calls her happy place. It's like a kind of cabin that them and their whole group of friends go. It's where they first met, and obviously they're trying to hide the secret that they've actually broken up and they're no longer together. This book was really emotional. A certain event like breaking up with someone can change your group dynamics, and how it can actually change your happy place. And the realizations and the way this book went was just amazing. Like, I didn't like Wayne from the first moment I met him. When I discovered who he was and like his reasonings for their breakup, like I fell in love with him. This book was just so deep. Like, if you haven't read Happy Place, like I think you were living under a rock. I'm sorry to say so, but I loved it so much. If you haven't read it, I definitely recommend checking it out. I think you guys will love it. If you want a book that's cozy but realistic and makes you feel like every single character is real. I definitely recommend checking it out. Even the characters that I didn't like, I understood where they were coming from because they felt so real and complex. Like, it made me feel so many feelings at once. I don't even know how to describe the feeling of reading this book for the first time. I wish I could read it again for the first time, but again, this book is another good summer rec. It's a good rec in general, but if you want a good summer book for 2024, I definitely recommend checking out Happy Place. And now let's move on to June. In June, I read one of my favourite books in the world. If I was to probably say one of my favourite books of the whole year, I would talk about my June read. That book is Consider Me by Rebecca Mack. This book right here, this book, Carter, my baby. He is my baby. He's my baby. I love him. Him and Olivia, chef's kiss. This again, boy falls first. He groveling. He's showing her to consider him, which is obviously consider me. And I was tempted. I was very tempted by him. He seduced me. I was seducted. And this book, I gobbled it up. I obviously have a new cover. These covers are beautiful. I have like the whole full covers up there and I'm obsessed with it. Even if I read Consider Me, definitely recommend checking it out. So obviously the premise of this book is Carter. Carter is a playboy, NHL player, and he meets Olivia on a night out and instantly he falls in love, like literally instantly. He goes from a player overnight to a guy that only wants one girl. He has his eyes set on her and nothing's going to stop him. Like, the groveling he did was absolutely amazing. I absolutely adored Olivia as well. I loved her strong personality. I love when we have strong female main characters. It just warms my heart. Girl vibes, like we love it. Here for the girls, always. But Carter, him my baby boo, my number one. I love him. I definitely need to give these books a reread, especially because I have these beautiful covers and I just ordered a bunch of book tabs. So if you haven't read Consider Me or the Playing for Keeps series, check it out because you won't be disappointed. Becca Mack, I love you so much. These books are my babies and yeah, I'm obsessed with them. So if you haven't read them, go and read them because it is such a good series. Consider Me is one of my all-time favourite romance books at the moment. Next we have July reads. So in July I read one of the most anticipated, popular, most spoken about TikTok books ever. Actually, I didn't think this book was going to be my favourites at all. Like at all. I didn't think that I was going to enjoy it one bit, but as I was reading it, I fell in love. Like, I loved the storyline, I loved the plot, I loved the twists and turns. It kept me on the edge of my seat every single waking moment. And that book was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book right here, I don't even know what to say. So this book actually features Monique. Monique is a journalist or a writer and she gets the once in a lifetime opportunity to sit down and interview Evelyn Hugo. Evelyn Hugo is a well-known actress, had 7 husbands and everyone wants to know about her and like why she had 7 husbands. But when Monique goes and meets Evelyn Hugo, she's like, actually hold on a second, I don't want you to do an interview, I want you to actually write my book for me. And Monique's like, what do you mean? And Evelyn's like, yeah, I want you to write my book. Like, you either write my book for me or I won't tell you anything and all my secrets, my whole story will die with me. And yeah, like there's so many twists and turns and I was mind blown. Like, this book felt like a thriller, it felt like a romance, it felt like a I don't even know, like it felt like a movie, it felt like a TV show and I was hooked every single moment. I loved the flashbacks, I loved the flash forwards, I loved all the characters and this book was amazing. If you haven't read this book, definitely recommend checking it out because it was such a good read. Like, it was such a good read. Next we move on to August. I didn't read that many books, but the books I read really enjoyed. So I started the ACOTAR series towards the second half of 2023. I've never been a fantasy girly in terms of reading books. Like, I've always been a fantasy girly in terms of like movies and TV shows, but this year I definitely wanted to get more into reading fantasy books and fantasy series, and I came across the ACOTAR series and that changed my life. It introduced me into fantasy. This series just owns my heart. In terms of my August favourite, I will be talking about the second book in the TIK-TOK series, which is A Court of Mist and Fury. I don't even know what to say about this book right here. If you've never read the TIK-TOK series, it features Faye. Faye is a human and she accidentally kills one of the High Fair. So in this world, there's people called the High Fair and they basically have special abilities. They kind of look like elves, or they look like witches, or they have special powers, or wolves and that type of stuff. And then there's obviously the humans, and the humans are kind of seen as like basically like the disgust, and like the High Fairs are kind of seen as sort of like a superstition, kind of as a myth. And Faye, she accidentally kills one of the High Fae, and as her punishment she's taken by Tamlin, who is the head of the Spring Court, and from there she enters a whole world of drama, of romance, of war, and this series just owns my heart. When I got into the second book, it really made me feel a whole type of way. Like, I loved the romance. I loved this series. Reminds me a lot of the Shadowhunters, if you've ever watched that or read those books. This book is quite thicker. This series is from Sarah J Maas. She actually has two other series that are from like the similar world, which is the Throne of Glass series and the Crescent City series, but obviously I've only read the TIK-TOK series at the moment. This book, I adored it, I loved it, and it was such a good read. If you're a romance girly and you really want to get into fantasy, definitely recommend checking out the TIK-TOK series. You won't be disappointed. This is not only my 5-star read of this series, I actually have two. This is around like a 5-book series. One of them is kind of a novella, but 2 out of 5 so far is so good to have a 5-star read. Like, if that doesn't tell you how much I've enjoyed it, I don't know what will. Next we have September read. September, again, I didn't read that much in September, but I read one of my favourite books. So I actually took this book from Sarah Caroli. She did a collab with Desi Sidwell and Hayley Palm, and that was By the Thread by Lucy Scott. This book right here was amazing. I adored it. This book features Dominic and Ali. So this is again like a boss slash assistant trope. She doesn't work directly for him, but it's enemies to lovers, grumpy ex sunshine. This book right here was just so steamy. Like, the sexual tension between these two characters before they even got together was smoking. Like, I was giddying, I was giggling, I was swinging my feet, because this book put me in all the romantic feelings. It was intense, it was spicy, and it was so freaking good. If you haven't read this book, check it out. If you're a romance girly and you haven't read this book, I don't even know what you've been doing. Cover is so freaking cute. Lucy Scott, I love her books anyway. I've read the Knock 'Em Out series from her. I love this book so much. It wasn't just steamy. I felt like it was such a fast-paced book, even though it is really thick. I read this, I think, within like 3-4 days, and for me that was really quickly, especially because I was working, moving back home from kind of uni. It was definitely romantic, it was definitely funny. Like, I found it really comedic, like the back and forth between Dominic and Ali. I felt like their relationship was just so entertaining to watch. It was such a fast-paced read, and you won't be disappointed if you go and read it. I'm going to move on to October. In October, I had a really good reading month. My favourite book from October is also part of a series. This book is A Court of Rings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. This is the 4th book of the TIK-TOK series. Again, I love this book so much. This book definitely focused more on the politics and like the kind of drama side of the series, and I loved it. Like, I was thoroughly entertained. I think I read this book in about 3 days. This book, bearing in mind, is about 700 pages long, so the fact that I was able to read that in 3 days, I don't know if that tells you how much I enjoyed it. I wish I did go ahead and annotate it. I hadn't bought my annotating accessories, but this book right here, I loved it so much. Like, seeing the characters and the way they like supported each other. This book feels definitely like found family, I would say. All the characters just become like such a nice friendship group and like family, as I said. I just love the little moments. Like, there was a lot of little moments in this book between like different characters and different couples, and seeing those little moments just made the book even better. This book is really fast paced. It doesn't feel like you're reading 700 pages. It feels like you're reading like a 300-page book, which I really loved. So if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend checking it out. Next, we're going to move on to November. November, again, read a good amount of books. This book I actually made a video on, so I actually filmed 24 hours reading challenge, but I didn't end up posting it because I lost basically all my footage because my laptop was just being so silly, and I was so disappointed because in that video I had like 3 5-star reads. That being said, I wanted to talk about my favourite book in November, and that is Archer's Voice by Amelia Sheldon. I love this book so much. We meet Archer. Archer is quite mysterious. He hasn't had the best childhood, the best life. Like, he had a good childhood, but a certain turn of events meant that he was often mistreated, and the way he went from a child to adult was very traumatic. And him, my baby, like, oh, I don't even know what to say. This book was emotional, it was romantic, it was gut-wrenching. I'm not gonna lie, it was gut-wrenching. I was crying my heart out, like traumatized, but I needed to read it. Like, this felt like a movie. It literally felt like a movie. Like, I didn't even feel like I was reading a book. I felt like I was there. I was witnessing these characters go through those things, and it felt like I was basically part of that world, and Archer's feelings and everything he went through felt like I was going through it too. Likewise, Brie, the way she comes into Archer's life and the way these two come together and heal each other was just amazing. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. Like, I don't even know what to say. I don't think there's enough words that I could say that will tell you how much I love this book. I saw this originally in Alexa Ray's video, and I saw how much she loved it, and I saw my girl Tiffany talk about it, so I thought I would check it out. And reading it, like, I'm gobsmacked. Like, I can't even talk about it. Like, I can't even speak because I loved it so much. If you haven't read Archer's Voice, check it out. At first, I was very hesitant to read it because I thought it was a sad book. Yes, it has sad elements, but doesn't mean that it's not going to be happy. This book was so good. You won't regret it. Archer's my baby. I love him. I love Rue. I love the relationship. I love the whole world. Wish I could read it again for the first time. That was every book that I loved from each month. Now we're going to talk about December. I'm not going to lie, I haven't read that much December. I've had so many things on my mind. I've been doing my Vlogmas and obviously my Bookmas content for you guys, but I have been trying to read other books in my spare time. Like, I finished reading The Legacy, The Graham Affair, Things We Hide from the Light, kind of getting those books wrapped up so I can kind of start my Christmas books. But there's 2 books that I really want to read before the year goes up. I did my 10 before the end, so definitely check that out, but I don't think a lot of these books I'm going to be able to read before the year ends. But 2 books that I think might be one of my favourite books of the month are these 2 books right here. So first, let's talk about this one. The first one is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This one features Yasmin and her husband Josiah. Were together, but they divorced, and they share business together. They obviously have children together, and they decide to become friends and just work together. But sometimes it's not as easy to just like put your feelings aside and forget about your past. And this book, I don't know if it's going to be a second chance for a man yet. Like, I've only started really reading it roughly, but I haven't really gotten into it yet because I've been doing so many other things, not because I've not enjoyed it. I think it might be one of my favourite books of December. I think it could be potential 5-star read, which is why I'm including it in this video, because I don't know what my favourite book is in December yet, because December's not up. I don't want to give you guys a book yet because I want to finish the month beforehand. This book has the most cutest cover ever. Kennedy Ryan is one of my favourite black romance authors. If you haven't read any books from her, definitely check out this book. The other book that I think might be my favourite of December is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. Obviously, I said I was reading the TIK-TOK series. I mentioned A Court of Wings and Ruin and A Court of Mist and Fury just before, but I think this book might have the potential to be the 5-star read and my favourite book of December. Again, this book is girthy. It's the final book of the series. I'm hoping this is going to be my favourite book because I've enjoyed the series so much. If I don't like this book, I'm going to be gutted because I want this book to end in a way that I will be happy to say bye to these characters, even though I know I don't want to. I'm so gutted to be saying bye to the TIK-TOK series, but I really enjoyed reading them, and I think this will be a 5-star read. I'm hoping it's going to be a 5-star read. I'm hoping it won't let me down. You guys will find out in my end of year book tag, but hopefully this is a 5-star read, and this again could potentially be my favourite of December. But yeah, those are all the books that I loved in 2023. Obviously, I have so many books that I loved this year, but these were my top 1 book for each month. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them. Were they 5 stars for you, or did you rate them 1 stars or even 2 stars? Let me know why. I really enjoyed 2023 and being part of BookTube. Like, I've loved it so much. Like, I've only been part of it basically since March, so I am so happy about what I've read, and the fact that I've read about 100 books nearly this year is just like wow to me. Like, younger me could have never done that. 17-year-old me would have been like, books? Whoa, that's disgusting. But I'm so excited for what next year is going to bring, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to my favourite reads of every single month of 2023. Bring on 2024. I can't wait to see how many books I'm going to read next year. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Follow my other socials down below. Check out my other Vlogmas videos, my other Bookmas videos. I'm so sorry I haven't had that much Bookmas content out, but this episode 2 is out, and I've had 2 episodes of Vlogmas and 2 episodes of Bookmas. Vlogmas episode 3 is coming out on Sunday, so check that one out. As I always say, I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!